בשם השם נעשה ונצליח. שיעור תורה, ברוך הבא, ברוכים הבאים. We are back here on our Tuesday night series, Era of Mashiach, Ikveta de Mashiach, based on the Kuntres by Rav Wasserman, alav shalom. Tonight's shiur will be for Ilui Nishmat, Zora bat Kachla, and Gavriel ben Kamuna, my dear grandparents. Kadosh Baruch Hu yivarech otam, ya'aleh et neshmatam began eden ezrat Hashem. And also for a refuah shlema for Avigail bat Surya, Rabbanit Levana bat Sarah, Rabbanit Sarah bat Anat, Rav Ephraim ben Shulamit, Sarah bat Levana, Esther bat Tzipora, Yitro ben Avraham, Talia bat Sarah, Michal bat Yael, Orit bat Ilana, Stefan ben Katarina, and also for a Atzlacha Rabba for Shaul ben Farzane, Marsha bat Julie, our dear daughter Ayla bat Marsha, and sons Alexander ben Marsha and Samuel ben Marsha, Oshri ben Doris, Gabi ben Doris, Elad ben Doris, David ben Nesriya, and all of Am Yisrael will have a refuah shlema, atzlacha rabba, b'chol ma'aseh yadeim, and B'ezrat Hashem, we will continue to get more and more of Am Yisrael closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. As a side note, for all of the people that are think the world revolves around them, that also happen to watch our shiurim, if you could please do me a favor, do not call me, text me, or really any way of contacting me, even through telepathy, right before the shiur, because it's not working or the volume. It's only slowing things down. You know, it's only slowing things down. Like, people are calling me right now on the Facebook, so I have to stop, go over there, shut it off, and people are texting. It's quite annoying. Remember, this is not CNN. This is not a CNBC. This is not Bloomberg television. It's not HBO programming. It's a Shiur Torah, and the Shiur Torah is we'll do our best to have it at a specific time, but we're not bound to a specific time. You're not, don't worry. You know, if you didn't get it on time, we'll refund you your subscription fee. Wait, you're not paying any subscription fee. So please, Rabotai, it's quite annoying, and it's actually slowing things down. It's slowing things down, the messages, the complaints. It's just seriously annoying, and I would really appreciate it if you simply do not contact me before the shiur, give or take an hour. Give or take an hour, meaning an hour before the shiur, don't contact me. Don't ask me to do anything special or do anything, because again, it slows things down. I have to prepare for the shiur. You're not the only person on planet Earth. You know, if your volume is not working, or the streaming is not working, or the shiur is not exactly at 9 o'clock, or whatever the case may be, I know I'm part of the shiur, so we're worrying. You know, we're trying to do our best. And worst case scenario, it doesn't work. You'll watch it tomorrow on YouTube. It's in B'ezrat Hashem on our app. But the point being is that it's people need to start coming down to like reality a little bit with some of the requests that people have, because it's getting a little out of hand. It's getting a little out of hand. So with that public service announcement, probably more for myself than for anybody else, because I'm assuming no one's going to hear or listen to me anyway, and still do it again tomorrow and the next week and the next week. I will continue with the shiur. But on a better note, we have Parashat Beshalach. Parashat Beshalach starts in a very unusual way, where you have Am Yisrael was in essence freed from Egypt from 210 years of being in Egypt. Some of those years were good years where Yosef HaTzadik was the leader, had a special Bnei Brak, special Mea Sha'arim section for Am Yisrael in the year called Goshen, where we were able to learn Torah, do our mitzvot, serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But that was in the beginning. And unfortunately, when the brothers or descendants of Yosef did not listen to his very strong recommendation to make sure to stay in Goshen and not go elsewhere, not go hang out with the Egyptians, not go invest into different areas. Just focus here. Stay here. Whatever money you need to make, Hashem will send it to you here. Whatever zivug you need to find, Hashem will send it to you here. Whatever opportunities they exist in the world for you will be here. You don't need to go to Tel Aviv. You don't need to go to Manhattan. You don't need to go to Sodom and Gomorrah. Just stay here. Learn Torah, do mitzvot, do whatever, that's it. And at that time, obviously, we had the oral Torah, not the written Torah, but nonetheless, we had the Torah already from Adam HaRishon. But unfortunately, as Am Yisrael got more and more successful, our desire to do things grew. And the descendants, even during the time of Yosef, started looking into other places, and there came the unfortunate decision to start investing into other places, going into other places, and that's when they started taking control over areas and neighborhoods that were not supposed to be theirs. And this just fueled the fire of hatred that Paro already had, because ungrateful people, the people that they hate the most, are the people that did them the most favors. And you'll notice that sometimes you'll have certain people that you don't get along with, whether it's at work or your community or whatever it is, and perhaps you'll just try to avoid crossing each other's path. You'll just try not to be in the same place, not to be invited to the same events, and so on and so forth. But generally speaking, you're not really going to go out of your way to hurt him. He's not going to go out of his way to hurt you. Or usually that's how it works. But if it was a former best friend, a former colleague or partner that you spent a lot of time with, that you not only spent time with, you did a lot of good for, that type of peace is not possible. Why? Because usually the relationships break as a result of ego, as a result of ungratefulness, and the people that you've done the most for, the one that you helped the most, the one that you arranged their purchase of their house, you arranged their let's say their zivug, maybe you were a shidduch, or perhaps you lent them some money, you got them a job, you gave them an idea for their business, you worked with them, you made them rich, whatever the case is, those people that, their natural instinct is obviously not Torah, their natural instinct is ungratefulness, they will hate you the most. They will not be able to tolerate your peaceful existence in the same earth that they live in. And they'll constantly try to get in your way. And that's, in essence, one of the things that an ungrateful person does, because their hatred is not fueled by your actions today. Their hatred is fueled by the fact that they know that they could never repay you for the good that you did them. And that causes them to hate you. So we see here that Paro was an ungrateful, the ultimate, most ungrateful human being that ever existed. And he forgot who Yosef is. Some say it wasn't the same Paro, it was a later Paro. Some say it was the same Paro. It doesn't really make a difference. Every Paro that would ever exist would know who was the one that put them on the map, and that was Yosef HaTzadik. And it wasn't like it was thousands of years later. It was one generation later. So whether it was the same Paro or a different Paro doesn't really make a difference. To say that suddenly he doesn't remember, he doesn't know who Yosef is, Rashi says there, it's not that he doesn't know, he chose not to know. Meaning he's an ungrateful person, but that ungratefulness led him to hate Am Yisrael even more. And as our sages teach us, someone that's ungrateful to his fellow will ultimately be ungrateful to Hashem to the point of heresy. Meaning he'll say he doesn't exist. And that's actually the source that we learn it from Paro, where in the beginning he forgot who Yosef is, but then later on he said, who is this God that I should listen to? Suddenly he doesn't realize there's a God to the world. So the point is, all of this starts with ego, which eventually gets to ungratefulness, sometimes pretty quickly, sometimes a little longer down the road. But nonetheless, ungratefulness is one of the traits that the Gemara says HaKadosh Baruch Hu hates. He despises people that are ungrateful because it's the exact opposite of him. So when Paro was ungrateful, he hated Am Yisrael even more so. Why was this allowed to happen? What did Am Yisrael do in order to deserve such a punishment? Because Am Yisrael themselves were ungrateful, unfortunately. They didn't listen to Yosef HaTzadik. They didn't listen to the instructions that were obviously from Hashem. They did not follow what the Masoret was until that point, which is to stay in Goshen. They expressed ungratefulness, and therefore, it's measure for measure. They received ungratefulness back, and unfortunately that led to a very long period of time, some say as long as 116 years of brutal slavery, Holocaust, to a much higher extent. It's the 6 million Jews that were murdered during the Holocaust is obviously horrible, but the truth be told is that many, many more died in Egypt, and the longevity of the Holocaust in Egypt was much longer than the longevity of the Holocaust in Nazi Germany. Not that one is better than the other or worse than the other, but just so you understand that the Holocaust wasn't the first Holocaust that we had. We've had Holocaust already since the beginning. Now, this event then moves on to HaKadosh Baruch Hu sending Moshe Rabbeinu to free Am Yisrael, to be his messenger, to be his Mashiach Hashem, to free Am Yisrael, despite the fact that he had a lack of ability to speak. He had a speech impediment, but to make sure that everyone knows for eternity that it's not because of his speaking skills, it's not because of his convincing ability, but rather because of the word of Hashem, that he was able to take Am Yisrael out of Egypt, and better yet, bring them the Torah from Mount Sinai. So we now have Moshe Rabbeinu, frees us, gets after the 10 plagues, lots of disaster, the biggest, strongest civilization in the world goes down to ashes practically in a matter of 1 year. The Jewish people, the Hebrews at the time they were called, or Israelites, leave Egypt, but they haven't arrived at Mount Sinai yet. They're now on the way to Yam Suf, to the Sea of Reeds. But suddenly Paro says, wait a minute, what did we do? What happened? Where did he get the start? If you look at this week's Parashat Beshalach, you'll see that somebody came to Paro and said to him, what have you done? You freed our slaves. How are we going to rebuild this country after all this destruction? So the Chachamim ask, who are these people that came to Paro and reminded him of what he did? I mean, obviously he freed the slaves. It wasn't such a secret. But apparently them reminding him of this fueled the fire enough to the point of craziness. Who did this? Chachamim say, Dathan and Aviram. Dathan and Aviram that were actually part of Am Yisrael. Wicked, Reshaim, who later on joined Korach before Kadosh Baruch Hu destroys them. But nonetheless, Dathan and Aviram did not leave with the rest of Am Yisrael, but rather stayed behind, and Hashem did not kill them. Hashem did not kill them like he did with the 80 to 98% of the Bnei Israel that didn't want to leave Egypt. He left them alive. Lots of unique miracles were made for Dathan and Aviram, but nonetheless, they come. So the question is, why would they do that? Okay, you don't want to leave Egypt, you don't want to leave America, you don't want to leave the UK, you don't want to leave Australia, even though the Mashiach has arrived. Okay, fine, to each his own. You're a little crazy, but fine, you want to stay, stay. But why are you now causing trouble for your brothers that left already? What's the problem? Secret is, Rabotai, Chachamim tell us, is that the Dathan and Aviram realized that now without Am Yisrael being slaves, they are hopeless, jobless, positionless, kavodless, no more honor, no more respect. Why? Because they were the shotrim. They were the police that Paro put on top of their own people to make sure they stay in check. And one of the reasons why Hashem left the Dathan and Aviram alive, even though they didn't want to leave, and they were actually really, really wicked, is because they took a lot of beatings. They took a lot of physical beatings for the sake of Am Yisrael, which means they at least showed that they love Am Yisrael. They showed that they care about Am Yisrael. Why? Because anytime the Egyptians told them to do certain things, and Am Yisrael didn't do it, they would hit the Dathan and Aviram first. And the Dathan and Aviram would defend them, but in return, they would get a lot of respect, a lot of honor, a lot of, kavod, and so on. But now that Am Yisrael is left, they go and show their true colors and tell Paro, what did you do? We have nothing to rebuild this country with. And now Paro goes back after them. Now, we'll focus on that point because that point is what, in essence, we're dealing with in this section of B'siyata Dishmaya, Rav Wasserman's Kuntres. You see, the Dathan and Aviram showed one part of themselves when Am Yisrael was in front of them. Please come to my yeshiva. Please come to my community. Please come to my house. We love you. We care about you. Look, Paro's people wanted to beat you up, but I took it for you. Look, I challenged the government. I did this. I did that for you, and so on and so forth. But as soon as they were not getting their nutrition of honor, pride, and so on anymore, because the Jewish people were gone at that point, their true colors came out and realized, wait a minute, if I'm not getting honor, if I'm not getting praise, if I'm not being told Chazaku Baruch every 30 seconds that I make a call, every 30 seconds that I send an email on his behalf, on her behalf, every single time I do anything good for them, they don't even respect it, they don't even say thank you, nothing, then, no, I'm going to destroy them. So that shows that love was not love of Am Yisrael, but rather love of themselves. And unfortunately, a lot of times relationships are destroyed as a result of people's own selfishness, where they think they love the other person, but in reality they only love themselves, and they only enjoy the other person because that other person gives them some form of pleasure, whether it's a benefit of money or intimacy or honor or otherwise. The point is, they tell the other person, I love you, I care about you, and so on and so forth, so long as they can continuously receive that benefit. But as soon as that benefit disappears for one reason or the other, they show their true colors. And as a result of their true colors being so ugly and so dark, then those true colors magnify to what they were at the root, which is not just pride, but also one of the things that stems out of pride, which is ungratefulness. Ungratefulness leads to hatred. And they ended up getting to that point, expressing hatred for their own brothers and sisters as a result of not getting this kavod, this honor, and so on. So Hashem paid the Dathan and Aviram their reward in this world. He actually split the ocean again for them. He let them live until they crossed the line one last time when they joined Korach. Later on, we'll learn about that in a few weeks. But Hashem destroyed them with Korach once and for all. But the point is, we see that the leaders can tell you they love you, they can call you a tzaddik, they can tell you you're the best person on the planet Earth, and all that good stuff. But in reality, they do not love you, they don't even care about you. In fact, they care about themselves, that they're willing to even kill you for the sake of themselves. Where else did we see this throughout history? Zionists, especially the famous leader of the Zionist movement, Herzl Yimach Shemo V'Zichro, he wrote it in his own journal. He wrote it in his own journal that was discovered and shown to anyone that's willing to see it, that he himself said that he loves Am Yisrael and he's willing to do everything to get the land of Israel for them, but if they don't support him, he's willing to kill all of them. Psychopathic love. This is not love of someone that truly loves you. This is love of someone that's literally a mass murderer. Just didn't need to use that opportunity yet. But later on, he actually was one of the fuels that fueled the fire of Hitler, because of all of his anti-Semitic articles that he wrote in the anti-Semitic newspapers, where many say Hitler learned most of what he knew about the Jewish people from those articles, from Herzl and his friends' articles, of how they said that the Jewish people are ungrateful and they are traitors and they're not loyal. And the reason why Herzl claims that he did all of this is because he wanted Hitler to kick them all out, even if that means kill a bunch of them in the process, even if that means increased anti-Semitism. As long as he kicks them out, they're going to be forced to love and support Herzl. At least that was in his mentality. They're going to have to support Herzl, and now he's going to get the land of Israel. So he says he loved Israel, but in reality all he loved is himself and his own goals, and that's why his own personal life was a complete disaster to the highest extent, but we're not going to spend any time on that. The point is, Rabotai Yekarim, is that sometimes you'll have certain people in your life that tell you they care about you, and sometimes those people look like they do. And they'll do certain things that make you think that they care about you, but later on you'll find out, and again, I don't wish this on anybody, but this is just a simple part of life, that you'll see that those people, as soon as you were not giving them that benefit that you used to give them, whether, like I said, whether that be one thing or the other, suddenly those people not only are not showing that same expression of love and care for you, but suddenly they're showing you the exact opposite. Suddenly they hate you. Suddenly they start trying to hurt you. Suddenly they are getting in your way constantly and, in essence, not even allowing you to live in peace, even if it's away from them. This is, unfortunately, what was in them the whole time. It wasn't a new thing. It was in them the whole time. They may not have even known it. But nonetheless, this is the subconscious becoming the conscious. This is who they really are. And that's why the Gemara says, how do you get to know a person? Koso, kiso, v'ka'aso. His cup, his pocket, and his anger. His cup, you get to know a person and what kind of, what's really is hiding in his mind after perhaps he has a couple of drinks in him and he's a little tipsy, he starts spilling out the truth. So that's one thing. Kiso, you get to know somebody once it has to do with money. When there's no money, you start a new business together. Everybody loves each other. Everybody cheers each other on. Yeah, we're going to build the next Microsoft. No, it's even going to be bigger. We're going to build the next Amazon. No, it's going to be even bigger. We're going to build the next world. Yeah, I love you. High five. Okay, as soon as some money comes in front of the tables, either you strike it rich, or worse, you start losing a bunch of money. All of a sudden, it's your fault. No, it's your fault. No, it's your wife. No, it's your kid. What happened? I thought you loved me. I thought we were going to build the next world together. That's kiso. That's the money. You get to know a person once money is in question. Either a lot of money or a loss of money. You made a lot of money or you lost a lot of money. You start seeing people's real personality. And then kaso. Kaso means it's anger or her anger. You get to know a person based on how they express their anger. Why? Because when everything is good and you're saying, I love you, you're my best friend, you're my best this, you're my best that, okay, great. But that's really not the real version of people. Why? The real version is once they get angry. How do they express their anger? Do they express their anger by talking about it, by trying to get to a conclusion, by trying to figure things out, and never getting to a point of being spiteful, never getting to a point of doing things that are outright evil? They're angry with you, they're upset with you, you did something wrong, but nonetheless, the world goes on, the relationship continues. Or are they those types of people that as soon as you cross their path in the wrong way, as soon as you said something in an incorrect way, they're going to destroy you and everything that's related to you? That's kaso. That's a person's anger. And that's how you get to know certain people. Now, I'm not recommending that everybody use this as a way to evaluate their husband, wife, or potential husband and wife. Hey, listen, let's go have a couple of drinks. Let me see how he reacts. Oh, listen, let me steal his wallet and see how he reacts. Oh, listen, you know what? Let me just take him off a little bit and see how he reacts. That's not a good idea. There was actually one young girl that went on a shidduch, and they went on a few shidduchim. Everything was going good, and the guy was really serious. He was they were already talking about getting married, and as you would have it, said, okay, you know what? We're going to go on this date. If everything goes well, you can ask her to marry me. He's going to ask me to marry him. All that good stuff. Okay. So she decides, I got to test him. So she decided to be extra annoying. Extra annoying, but, annoying with a degree. There's annoying and then there's annoying. So she decided, okay, what time are you going to pick me up? I'll pick you up at 7. Okay, 7. 7 shows up and leaves. 7:30 shows up and leaves. 7:45 shows up and leaves. An hour and a half late. Okay, I'm ready. The poor guy, what is he going to do? Okay, it's a shidduch. Okay, she's late. It happens. Okay, whatever. An hour and a half late. Okay, no problem. Keeps his mouth shut. Okay, let's go. What do you want to eat? Oh, no, let's go to this place over there. Which place? Oh, that restaurant. Okay, let's go. It gets over. Oh, you know what? I don't want to go there. Well, why not? No, I want something else. Maybe we should go with dairy. This is meat over here. Okay, fine, no problem. Let's go find some. Another 20 minutes. Get to the place. You know what? I'm hungry now. Maybe we should get something. Maybe we should get maybe a burger or something. We just came from a burger place. You didn't want. Yeah, but I wasn't hungry 20 minutes ago. Okay, let's go. So and that's how the whole night goes. She's just trying to get him annoyed, just to see how he reacts. Now, Baruch Hashem, this kid had Yirat Shamayim. He learned a little bit of Torah. He had a lot of patience until she crossed the line. How did she cross the line? He drives her back home to finish off this god-awful night, and she decides to take the car keys out. Take the car keys out and not want to give it back to him in the middle of moving traffic. They went to a light. She saw he's pressing on the brake. She shifted the gear, was able to turn off the car and take the car keys. And he's like, ha ha ha. He's like, what are you doing? There's people beeping. It's not nice, not polite. There's other people here waiting at the light. No, come on, get it for me. Get it. I'm not gonna get it for me. Just give it to me. Come on, people are waiting. 15 minutes she plays this stupid game. 15 minutes, people are barking on him, cursing him out. He's embarrassed as can be. But what is he going to do? So, after 15 minutes, she sees that he doesn't lose his cool. She gives him back the keys. And he drives. He's annoyed as can be, but he doesn't say a single word. And he drives to her house. And she says, I was just kidding, right? I was just testing you just to see how you are. He's like, okay. And you failed the test. I have no interest in never seeing you again. Why? But I was kidding. Okay, I'm not kidding. The end. Drives off. They never saw each other again. Why? Don't test people with these things in real life on purpose. If it happens, be conscious of the fact that this is a moment of truth and they're going to get to know this person for real. But don't be one of those people that says, no, I'm going to try and to torture somebody. Don't do things like that. Women, men, sometimes when they're a little bit on the emotional side, they say things they should never say. They make remarks that are very, very spiteful, very extreme. And this is the type of stuff that destroys marriages, destroys families, destroys relationships. And I highly, highly recommend, if you don't listen to the rest of everything that I'm going to say tonight, one suggestion I tell you. If you're not 100% sure that you're willing to live with whatever you're about to say for the rest of your life, don't say it. Don't say it. Don't call off the wedding. Don't say, I quit this job. Don't say, I want a divorce. Don't say, I hope you die. Don't say these statements unless you're willing to live with the consequences forever. And I promise you, 99.999% of the time, people that say such dumb statements are not willing to live with the consequences. They want to say, I'm sorry the next day, but remember, you're not 4 years old. So forgiving you, it's not going to be so easy. Because even if the person forgives you, says, oh yeah, no, I didn't really mean to tell you I hope you die, I love you, I don't mean that. Yeah, okay, fine. Even if they say, okay, fine, they have now damage on them permanently. You can't take that stuff away. This is like one, my dear mother, God bless her, told me a story years ago. And she said that this couple was married, and the husband was, one of these people that like to say things that are a little off, that were painful a little bit. Why? Because he thought it's a joke, he thought it's funny, he thought it's cute to call his wife a little fat, a little skinny, a little this, a little that. He thought it's cute. And the wife, she didn't want to say nothing. She didn't want to fight. But she said, I'm so upset. I don't know, what do I do? She had an idea. One day she decided, every time he says something to me that's mean, every time he breaks my heart, I'm going to take a nail and smash it in the tree, his favorite tree that's in the backyard. Okay, so as you would have it, he says something, she takes a nail, she puts it, now it's one nail, no one really notices, it's a big tree. But this guy is on a roll. Every day, 1 or 2 nails. Every day, 1 or 2 nails. Now, the winter is gone. And he finally decides to go outside, and he sees that his favorite tree, now that there's no snow and cloud and all that stuff, it's beautiful outside, but he sees his trees full of nails. He says, what is this? Who did this? What is this, neighbor? The Polish guy? Or is it the Russian guy? Is it the Moroccan guy? Who did this to me? The wife looks at him and says, I did. Why would you do that to my favorite tree? And she tells him, I don't want to fight with you, but your words hurt me. And every time you hurt me, because I had to express my feelings in some way, I took a nail and I stuck it in the tree. At that moment, this guy realized, yeah, she just hurt my tree, but look how much I hurt her with all of these nails. Wow, must be hundreds in there. He says, how long have you been doing this? She says, just during the winter. That's it? All of these nails in one winter? She says, yeah. And he starts calculating, oh my, we've been married for 10, 15 years. Wow, just imagine. And he realized, I got to do tshuva. I got to fix it. I got to do something. And he starts working on himself. So now, instead of saying all of these stupid jokes that he has, instead of saying all the mean things that he does, he starts giving her compliments. Oh, you look pretty today. Oh, you look nice today. Oh, I love your food today. Whether it means it, doesn't mean it, she takes it. Why? Because finally there's something good coming out of this Peri Adam, this person. So she says, I now have to express my feelings somewhere. How? I'm going to start taking out the nails. And as you would have it, after another season, the guy goes out. He hasn't seen his tree in a long time. He was upset enough to see it the first time, but he did tshuva. He said, okay. And he goes outside. And he sees the tree has no nails. Not a single one. But he's even more upset today than when he was when he realized there were so many nails. Why? Because now he saw the holes in the tree. We realized, okay, you know what? I heard her. She put the nails. I said, I'm sorry. I started giving her compliments. Everything is good. But the problem is that some of the things that I said was so bad, was so mean, that she put the nail in there. So even though I said I'm sorry a year later, it's still a mark. And that mark's not going to go away so quickly. And that's why I tell you, Rabotai, when it comes to relationships, if you want this relationship to last as long as your life is, do not be a spiteful person. Do not be a person that says things without thinking about them. Why? Because even if you say I'm sorry and the other person cares enough about you, is willing to take that apology, it doesn't mean that the nail being removed means that it's all gone, because there's still going to be a scar. There's still going to be a mark there. And that's hard. It's hard to remove some of those marks, especially when it comes to marriage. Now, Rabotai Yekarim, one of the main things that a person can do in order to make sure not to put themselves in such a situation where they lose their mind, they lose their patience, they say things that are out of control and so on, is first and foremost to think. Think, what would Moshe Rabbeinu tell me to do right now? What would HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself tell me what to do right now? What is the Da'at Torah on this? If I can't think Torah because I'm so angry and so on, okay, stay quiet. Stay quiet. Second of all, remember all the good things you got from these people. Whoever this person is, be grateful. Why? Because your anger is usually expressed at the highest level when you forget about all the good things. You become ungrateful, and ungratefulness leads to evil. This, Rabotai, was one of the main things that led to Dathan and Aviram. Dathan and Aviram being as evil as they were, it was all because of their own selfishness. And unfortunately, Dathan and Aviram were not the only bad leaders we've ever had. In fact, they were just the earlier ones. Bad leaders have been part of every nation, needless to say, part of Am Yisrael. We've had bad leaders, bad kings, bad rabbis, bad kohanim. There was a time period during the second Bet HaMikdash that every year the Kohen Gadol would die. And the reason why was because he was wicked. He was a wicked Kohen. He was never supposed to be a Kohen. He just bought himself the priesthood. But during Yom Kippur, instead of praying to Hashem, thinking about Hashem, he thought about other things, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu killed him inside the Kodesh Kodeshim on Yom Kippur. So instead of bringing tshuva and mercy to the rest of Am Yisrael, he brought deen to them. And literally there was over 300 Kohanim. Every year a new Kohen would die. Year after year. Now, the leaders that we've had that are bad, first and foremost, they all thought that they were good. Sometimes they were rabbis, sometimes they were political leaders, the ones today, the ones before. Everyone usually thinks that they're the best, everyone usually thinks that they're good, and so on. But as we've already learned at this point, the only one that can determine whether you're good or bad is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu can determine it based on whether you're following his rules in the Torah. Now, Rav Wasserman says that in his generation, and before his generation, and needless to say, to our many sins after him even, after the Holocaust, there was a new form of idolatry coming inside the religious world. Now he's discussed many of the Zionists, the wicked people out there, but he's saying now that, or last week, that there was a new form of religious people that were idol worshippers. Who are these people? These national religious people. These Dati Leumi, where they would connect the modern world and the religious world, the secular world, the religious world, very similar to modern orthodoxy today, probably more in line with open orthodoxy, because there are some very decent and righteous modern orthodox people, but nonetheless there is a lot of problems with modern orthodoxy. As we saw in a study that was done just a few years ago, that nearly 50% of the modern orthodox people, or people that claim to be modern orthodox, don't believe in Hashgacha Pratit, don't believe in divine providence, which makes them 100% heretics that you cannot count on the minyan. So there's very serious problems with modern orthodoxy, and anyone that denies it is simply either living an illusion, or is just one of them, one of those people that doesn't believe in divine providence and is considered a heretic. But the point being is that these Dati Leumi, these national religious people, Rav Wasserman says they're idol worshippers. Why? Because it wasn't enough for them to call themselves like the rest of Gdolei Hador, the rest of the big rabbis, the rest of the religious community, just Dati. Religious, Orthodox, that's it. Orthodox Jew. Dati. No, they wanted to call themselves Dati Leumi, international, a nationalist, meaning I'm religious, but I'm also part of all of mankind, everyone together, kumbaya. We can have events and campaigns together with the Christians and the Catholics, maybe even with the Buddhists and the Muslims, very similar to some of the people we've called out as wicked people over the last several years. Some of the leaders, unfortunately, or fake leaders, but nonetheless leaders in the UK, Ephraim Mirvis, Shem Reshaim Irkav, or Ephraim Goldberg, which I'll never forgive or forget the things that he did to Am Yisrael and continues to do to them on a regular basis in his kehillah, but people continue to run towards him and his kehillah because either they don't know or simply they don't care. Some people really truly don't know that this person is really an evil person because he looks and acts appropriately. And unless you are zealous for Hashem and you look into different details of who and what he says and how he says and what he does and who he brings and what, you're not going to notice it. Very similar with people that are much less religious than him, like Dennis Prager. Dennis Prager looks like a very civilized human being, even kind, even nice, relatively intellectual, has a interesting opinion about a lot of things. All intents and purposes, seems like a guy you want to have a drink with. In reality, if you're a goy, you can have a drink with him. But if you're a Jew that wants to have a connection to Hashem, or a goy that wants to have a connection to Hashem that's authentic, you cannot hang out with such a person. You cannot invite such a person. Why? It's supporting someone that's against Hashem, someone that is an enemy of Hashem. Because everything that he says may seem fine, but the inner details show that it's the opposite of fine. Same thing with Goldberg and the others, Ephraim Mervis, and so on. Now, these types of people all have one thing in common. What is that in common? They're in essence trying to cater to everyone. Mervis, Goldberg, Prager, Manis, Dror, all of these people, they're nothing new under the sun. They're all simply doing the same thing that the Dati Leumi did before them, previous generation, the time of Rav Wasserman. They're just simply trying to cater to everyone. If you're really a Haredi, okay, you're going to sit over here in this seat, in a corner over here, in a synagogue, so no one bothers you. You make the guy feel good. Chazaku Baruch every time he shows up with a book, and so on. The guy that's reformed, wants to give bar mitzvah to his dog or something, say, listen, we care about you, we want you, but the problem is we can't give your dog a bar mitzvah because he's not Jewish. But I know somebody that will. You go to that shul next door, I'll make a call for you, and you can go over there, they'll give him a bar mitzvah because they're not so picky about that. But he caters to the reform. The Christian guy that wants to destroy Jewish neshamot comes. Listen, you brought your checkbook with, right? Okay, then you come. You come to the minyan, come to my house, come to everything. So he caters to everyone. They cater to everyone. So it makes them seem nice. It makes them seem civil. It makes them seem friendly and social. But in reality, according to our Torah, they're enemies of the Torah. These are our leaders, Hashem Yishmol. These are our leaders in the religious world. Now, of course, we have some good leaders too. But the good leaders, unfortunately, cannot do enough good to contain all of this damage that the bad ones are doing. That's just the way life has always been. So, Rav Wasserman here says that these Dati Leumi, these internationalists or national or religious people, are idol worshippers. Why? Because they're adding something to our Torah. And as the Chazon Ish says, anything chadash is asur. Anything new in Judaism is forbidden. Forbidden. Meaning, we didn't ask you to add another name to it. We didn't ask you to add any new laws. All we ask you to do is work with the body of laws that we have and simply tell us how to apply them to today's world. Nothing new. Don't add anything new. You're adding something new, that means that you think that you have something better than our Torah. You're adding a Torah to our Torah. And that's a problem, a very serious problem. And Rav Wasserman Mamash calls them idol worshippers. So now he continues. He continues and he says, these national religious people that are adding a Torah to our Torah have brought confusion of ideas and mixed values into our camp. Before they came along, before they appeared, these so-called religious people, these modern Orthodox types mentality people, and again, many of them were much worse than some of the worst ones of today, but nonetheless, the mentality, unfortunately, is still in the world today. Before their appearance, it was known that only one who keeps the Torah can be reckoned as a real Jew. It says before these types of religio-nationalist people these Dati Leumi people showed up, everyone knew, for all of the generations, 3,000 years, if you want to be known as a real Jew, you have to observe the Torah. You have to keep Shabbat, you have to keep Tahat Mishpacha, you have to cover your head with the kippah, with the hat, you have to be modest, you have to be simply a kosher person. Everyone knew that. Simple. Go pray every day, put on tefillin. Simple. That's how you were determined to be a Jew. Why? Because Judaism officially started at Mount Sinai. Even though Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov had the entire Torah itself, and they practiced the Torah, as we discussed in previous shurim, they weren't obligated to do so because they were in essence considered Noahites. And all of Am Yisrael that were in Egypt also practiced the Torah, practiced some of the laws and so on, but they weren't obligated to do it. Why? Because the Torah wasn't officially given as an obligation for everyone to keep. But once we got to Mount Sinai, our name changed. Before that, we were called the sons of Yaakov, the Bnei Israel. We were called the people that came from Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov. Great. But after Mount Sinai, we were known as Am Yisrael. Am Yisrael, the nation of Israel. Why the nation of Israel? That's when we became Jewish. What changed at Mount Sinai? We received the Torah. We received the Torah. We accepted the Torah. We said Naaseh v'nishma. We said we will we will listen. And that's when we officially became Jewish people. Now, had Am Yisrael not accepted the Torah, the Gemara in Masechet Shabbat simply says that Hashem would have killed everyone and destroyed the world. Simple. What did he do? When we went to Mount Sinai, you look at the Psukim in the Torah, it says that Am Yisrael were under the mountain. Why were they under the mountain? Usually you would say they were next to the mountain. No, it says they were under the mountain. Why under the mountain? Hashem, the Gemara Masechet Shabbat says, Hashem took Mount Sinai, picked it up in the air, and he says, this is either our wedding or your funeral. If you accept the Torah, this is like a chuppah. Like the talit you have is a chuppah, cover the chuppah, for bride and groom. This is our wedding. We'll be forever married, never divorced. Even if you're wicked and so on, we're always going to stay married. You're always going to be my chosen people. This is our wedding. But if you say, no, you don't want Torah, simply I'm going to drop the mountain on all of you and you're just going to die. It's going to be your burial ground. So Chaim say, well, this is a little bit of forced. This is like fanaticism. Yes, it's fanaticism. Why? He's the king. He can do whatever he wants. And now Barbanel says, what did you think? That we have an irresponsible God that's going to leave the destiny of eternity for the whole world up to the opinion of people? No, he told them, listen, you have a choice, but it's not free. If you accept the Torah, you'll get a bunch of good things with it. You don't accept the Torah, you'll get death. Why? There's no purpose for you. And that was what happened at Mount Sinai. But that's when we became Am Yisrael. We became the nation of Israel. We became the Jewish people. Had we not accepted the Torah, and someone else, Chas v'Shalom, would have come and accepted the Torah, they would have become the Jewish people. Why? Because what makes a person Jewish is whether they accept the Torah completely or not. Hence the reason of why conversion is possible in Judaism. You don't have to be born Jewish in order to be Jewish. If you want to be Jewish, you have to simply accept the entire Torah and follow all of it. Which means that if you are born not Jewish, and you now want to be Jewish, you have to follow the Torah. Not just follow the story along and like the stories and the mystical parts. No, follow all of the laws. That means you have to go to a Beit Din and have them approve you to be a Jew by you passing a relatively easy test, dipping into a mikveh. If you're a male, have Brit Milah, and then obviously live in a Jewish community and follow all the laws forever. There's no way out of Judaism once you become a Jew. But the point is that if you want to be a Jew, you can, by observing the entire Torah. Doesn't matter where you were born, if you were born in Ethiopia, you were born in America, you were born in Australia, you were born in Chile. Doesn't make a difference. If you want to be a Jew, you have to follow the laws. And the laws mean that you have to go to a Beit Din and have them accept you into Am Yisrael. It has to be three people, one of them being a dayan, and two other kosher people that are familiar with the laws, but they don't necessarily need to be experts like the first one. But nonetheless, there's a whole procedure around it. It's not easy. It's a little bit of politics to deal with, a little bit of headache. Some people take longer than others. Some people are more expensive than others. But the point is that if you want to be a Jew, you have to follow the rules. If you're a woman, that means you have to be modest, you have to cover your hair, you have to eat kosher, you have to keep talak mishpacha, which is family purity, and so on and so on. If you don't want to study the laws of the Torah, don't become Jewish. No, but I like the stories. Okay, you could like the stories as a non-Jew. Simple. Oh, but I like the lectures. You could listen to the lectures, but just as a non-Jew. But just make sure that those lectures have more to do with character trait development than they do with the specific laws. Why? Because if there are speakers that are speaking about laws that are unique to Am Yisrael, you're forbidden from hearing them. The point being is, you can be a Jew if you want to be. Now, once a person decides that they really want to be a Jew, the amount of time it takes them to do that, or the amount of money that it takes to become that, should not matter to them at all. And the reason why is because everything that's of any value is difficult. Anything that's of any value is something that usually takes a while to develop and get to. So if you're expecting to reach your end goal overnight, that means that you either don't really want it and you're just excited to just get something like a child, or you don't appreciate what you're about to get, hence the reason why Hashem is not opening the doors for you. And you're really not ready to be a Jew. You just want to be because you really don't know what you're talking about. So once a person wants to be a Jew, it shouldn't matter to them how long it takes and how much it's going to cost, as long as they know that they're moving forward. Every day they're learning, every day that they're doing, and so on and so forth. As long as they're moving forward towards that final day of conversion, whenever that may be, then they should be as happy as could be with it. But many times you see people expecting to come into the synagogue and for people to convert them. It doesn't work that way. Oh, well, it's so much easier to be a Christian. So you guys are, making it so difficult to be a Jew. Maybe people are going to become a Christian instead. Listen, you can become a Christian. Oh, but come on, don't you want? They're idol worshippers. Okay, so don't become a Christian. Okay, so maybe I'll become a Muslim. They also are monotheistic. They believe in one God. Go ahead, become a Muslim if you want. No. Oh, what, you don't care? It's not that I don't care. It's your choice. It's your life. You have to do what you want to do. We know we have the truth. Our truth has a certain requirement system. Just like heaven has requirements to allow certain people in and certain people are not allowed in, Judaism, in essence, has the same thing. You don't like it. You don't like it. We don't make the rules. This is just the way it is. Problem is, Rabotai, people think that they come in and just change everything. This happens with Baalei Tshuva, this happens with converts a lot of times, and it's very, very problematic, more for them, more so than the community, because the community is not going to change. It's very difficult to get an entire community to change. But the point being is that if you really want to be a Jew, it shouldn't matter to you as long as you're moving forward. And if you think that threatening to go elsewhere and so on, that's going to make it anyone move your route, it's not going to work. In fact, it'll actually discourage the rabbi and the bedin and so on more from even allowing you to become a convert under their supervision. Why? Because they see that you are not really a very stable person. You're not a stable person. You don't really understand what you're getting yourself into. And when people say, wait, hold on a second, so how do I, now they all of a sudden have doubts. Oh, how do I know that Judaism is right? When there's so many more Christians and Muslims in the world that perhaps maybe there's the majority rules. Listen, majority doesn't rule at all. Not in truth. A lot of people thought that there was a lot of bad things in the world that were the right thing until they found out that there wasn't. The point being is that when you are looking to become a Jew, you have to simply go after the truth, no matter what the cost is, how much time it is, and so on and so forth. Now, these national religious type of people, these modern Orthodox type of people, it's easy for me to say, these types of people didn't believe in anything I just said to you. Why? They believed everyone is the same, meaning there is no reason to convert. And if you're Jewish, there's no reason to keep the Torah. Everyone should just simply do whatever they feel like doing, whatever is good for you. Live and let live type of mentality, which sounds friendly. So Rav Wasserman says these types of people brought a lot of confusion and mixed values into our camp. Before their appearance, it was known that only one who keeps the Torah can be reckoned as a real Jew, whereas one who denies the Torah is like a heretic, an apostate, and has no link with us. Someone that denies the Torah, simply, we don't consider him as part of our people. Yeah, but his mom is Jewish. Okay, so if he's open to it, we'll help him do tshuva and start keeping the mitzvot and so on. Oh, so what? You don't consider him the same as, let's say, the rabbi or the rabbi's son or one of the fellow religious people in the shul? No, you don't consider him the same. Why? There is, like in anything else in life, there is a priority list. There is a position. There is, differences of people, simply. There's a CEO, there's the vice president, there is the president, there is the general manager, there is the executive assistant, and there is cleaning people and janitors and all types of other employees. Doesn't mean that they're bad. It's just that there is a list. There's a list, simple, from top to bottom, bottom to top, whatever you want to consider it. The point is, you cannot consider someone to be on the same level as another person if they don't have the same role. If this guy, all he does is sweep the floor of the building, while the other guy is making $1 million sales, they cannot be paid the same. They cannot be treated the same. They cannot be considered the same. Why? This guy is easily disposable because he just cleans and that's easy to replace. The other guy makes multi-million-dollar sales and it's not easy to replace. Simple. This is just normal in life. It's normal in business. It's also the same thing in Judaism. Although we need to try to help anyone we can and anyone that's willing to be helped get closer to Hashem, until they do, the priority always has to be to your fellow Jew that's your fellow in mitzvot. Why? Because he's already your brother. The other one, unfortunately, not yet. Not yet. So this was always understood. For 3,000 plus years, this was understood. If someone wanted to be a heretic, if someone wanted to be an apostate, simply the religious people would disconnect most things from them. They wouldn't necessarily kill them or hurt them, offend them or anything like that, but they would simply not consider them part of the Jewish people. When they're calculating how many people they need to pray, how many people they need to do a Jewish ceremony, how many people they can rely on for certain important things, they do not consider those heretics as one of them. Why? Simple. You're not one of us. You're not doing the same thing as one of us. And just because your mother was Jewish, just like my mother was Jewish, doesn't necessarily make us, the blood brothers that we're supposed to be. Why? Because even Esav and Yaakov were blood brothers, same exact mother, not even different mothers, same exact mothers, but yet they are mortal, eternal enemies. Where Hashem says, I love Yaakov, and at Esav saneti, at Esav I hate him. Why? Yaakov followed the Torah and mitzvot. Esav did not. And Hashem says, I hate him. So, when a person understands that, the same rules that apply in your day-to-day life and the same as in the religious life, your spiritual life, it's easier to handle the truth that we're about to talk about, that many people think is politically incorrect or perhaps is inappropriate for according to them. But as Rav Wasserman says, someone who denies the Torah is an apostate and has no link to us. These religio-nationalists assert otherwise, saying, certainly he's a denier of the Torah, this person, but since he has a nationalist view, he's one of us, meaning as long as he appreciates that we are all part of the same people, that we all want to live in the same country, that we all love, similar food. That's it. He's one of us. That's enough. It's enough. Even if he doesn't agree with our food. even if he doesn't agree with our religious opinion. But he wants to live in the same place. He wants to have our own country. That's it. He's one of us. Well, that depends. What do you define as us? If us is the Jewish people, then that definition is wrong. If us is something else, then why do you call yourself a Jewish people? And that's the problem with these types of religio-nationalist people, these modern Orthodox mentality type of people, where they want to be called and considered religious, even though their actions many times are quite the opposite. And that's what Rav Wasserman says is what's causing the most confusion. You may look religious, you may even say things religious, you may even do religious things, but overall inside, you're an internationalist. You care just as much about your fellow human being as you do about your fellow Jew. That's religious and in mitzvot. You think they're the same, there's not much difference. You care just as much about the Christian as you do about the Jew. You care just about anything in the world, just as much as you are the Jew. That's a problem. Why? Because everyone knows, anyone that has siblings knows that your brother, even if you get into a fight with him, your sister, even if you get into a fight with her, and you guys brawl it out and you're little kids, and if somebody else does that to your brother, you're going to take their head off. Why? I can do it to him, but you can't. I can beat up my brother, but you can't touch him. That's a reality. Why? It's my brother. He's mine. It's mine. It's my brother. He's different. Yeah, but you just beat him up. Yeah, it's because he's my brother. We fight. We love each other. We're brothers. You're not my brother. You're just somebody. So if you look at your fellow Jew as a brother like that, you could argue, you could disagree, and so on and so forth, but nonetheless, he's special. He's unique. No one else in the world is like him. Yeah, then we have something. But if that uniqueness is conditional to your likings because he agrees with your political opinions, then we have a problem. Now you say, wait a minute, isn't that the same thing as that conditional if he agrees with your religious opinions? No, it's not the same. Why is that not the same? Because your religious opinions, your political opinions do not need to be the same in order for you to be brothers. There's no commandment in the entire Torah that tells us that we all have to have the same political views. Surely those political views should be geared towards the Torah and the observance of Torah, but nonetheless, if you have two candidates that both are, normal, anti-liberal types of people, they're normal, but rather one person likes this guy, the other person likes that guy, no problem, there's no difference. You like that religious party, he likes that religious party, you want Shas, he wants the other one, no problem, there's no machloket, no problem. You're allowed, it's a perfectly normal disagreement. You don't have to have the same political opinions, but you do have to have the same religious opinions. Why? That's what makes you a Jew. That's what makes you a Jew. You cannot think for a second that he believes that Yoshke is the Mashiach or is God or something, and you believe in the God of Israel, and you guys can still be brothers. You think that? There's something wrong with you. Why? You're not brothers. So why is that different than the political aspect? Because the religious view, the ideology, the religious practice is what makes you a Jew, rather than just another human being. You see, your political views and other types of agendas, that's what makes you a human being. Which is, again, you could be among one of the other 8 billion people in the world. Some are very nice, some are horrific people. But nonetheless, your political, personal, business, whatever other type of opinions, that's what makes you a human being. But in order to classify yourself as a Jew, you have to have the same religious beliefs. You have to believe in the same God, you have to believe in the same Torah, you have to believe in the same principles. Even if sometimes your customs are slightly different, the customs don't make you a different religion. Even if sometimes your rabbi is different, your rabbi doesn't necessarily make you a different religion. Even if your rabbi tells you yes and his rabbi tells you no, it's still not necessarily different. Why? Because as long as those rabbis that you both rely on use the same rules in order to arrive at a conclusion, at an halachic conclusion, they in essence, arrived at the truth in the same approved path of Torah, no problem. You could say yes, he could say no. You could go with the custom of eating rice on Pesach, and he, on the other hand, he's Ashkenazi. His rabbi tells him, listen, the rice is forbidden on Pesach. Forbidden. Now, your average Sephardi from Iraq, from Egypt, from Tripoli, from Spain will say, what do you mean it's not allowed? I can't live without rice. If I could put rice on my kids, I'd eat them. Your Ashkenazi brothers say, listen, Habibi, that's kitniot. For us, that's like chametz. Can't eat it. Can't have it in the house even. That's perfectly normal. Why? Because that's not the foundation of Judaism. It's customs, it's traditions, and so on. Both poskim use the same principles, laws, and so on to arrive at the truth. That's not a problem. But if he tells you, listen, in order for you to be my brother, you have to be a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter or Osama bin Laden supporter. No. That does not make you brothers. That doesn't make you brothers. Doesn't make you brothers. Now again, sometimes if you go deeper into some of this stuff, you'll say that some of the political views do influence the religious views, which is 100% right. But again, we're talking about the basics. We're not going to go into too much details. Now, here you have these modern Orthodox type of people, religio-nationalist people, that are extremely friendly, have very nice smiles, many friends of all types of religions and beliefs and so on. In essence, they're saying what's the opposite of what our Masoret has been for the last 3,000 years, where they're even saying, even if he's a denier, as long as his nationalist views are the same as us, he's one of us. So Rav Wasserman says, but that's contrary to the law. What's the law? Maimonides, the Rambam, in Hilchot Melachim, chapter 1, halacha number 7, says the following: if any person is not God-fearing, he is prohibited from being appointed, or it's prohibited to appoint him to any office or leadership position in Israel. Here you have a law within the Torah, which the Rambam, Rav Moshe Feinstein, Rav Sternbach, the Chinuch, everyone across the board has the same exact rule. It's not like unique. There's no machloket in this rule. Where it says, if any person is not God-fearing, it's prohibited to appoint him to any office in Israel. Yet these modern Orthodox type of people are saying they condone the appointment of deniers to be leaders of Israel. While our Torah tells us that if he doesn't even have to be a denier, doesn't have to be a heretic. If he simply doesn't have Yirat Shamayim, he's not afraid, he doesn't really treat the mitzvot like they're a big deal. He says, whatever, I'll show up, I won't show up, I'll do it, I won't do it. He has no Yirat Shamayim, even if he knows a lot of Torah. But he has no Yirat Shamayim. Rambam Paskins, the Chinuch the same, and across the board is the same thing. You're not allowed to give him any leadership position. This specific halacha is talking about kings, but the Chachamim say it's not just about a king, it's obviously about everyone. Not allowed to give him a political position that's of leadership. He's not allowed to be part of your board of directors. He's not allowed to be the head rabbi or even a rab. He's just no Yirat Shamayim, no leadership position. Not allowed. Even to manage the water system for the Jewish people is not allowed. But yet these modern type of people, these people that are befriending anyone that has similar opinions to them politically but not religiously, they're doing not only the opposite, but the antithetical choice, where they're saying these people are deniers of the Torah, and yet they should be leaders of Israel. Here we see that the opinions are not just the opposite, but they're literally antithetical, where one is saying you have to have Yirat Shamayim, you have to have fear of heaven in order to be a leader of anything in Am Yisrael, and that's the halacha. Where the other one says you not only don't have to have Yirat Shamayim, you don't even have to believe in God, but yet still be the leader of Israel. which is what we saw with the Zionists. Herzl himself converted his son, didn't give him a brit milah, had a Christmas tree in his house every year, wrote to the Pope that his goal is to convert all of the Jewish people to Christianity. When Max Godel, that was married to a Goya, came to him and told him, listen, I appreciate your endeavor to go support this, get this land of Israel, but the problem is I'm a lost cause. I'm married to a non-Jew. Herzl told him, why do I care if you're married to a non-Jew? As long as you marry this non-Jewish woman in Israel. That's all that's important to me. So you see that to him, destroying the Torah was not a big deal. Why? He cared less about the Torah. His Judaism had nothing to do with Judaism. Had nothing to do with Judaism. Simply was just to serve his own agenda. And his followers did the same. Now, in our Torah, we have certain rules. And Rav Wasserman says, this rule of being a person that has no Yirat Shamayim, this is a very serious problem. Now, if a person has no Yirat Shamayim, how do we deal with this? So first, we have to know that there is a class system, if you will. If a person understands that it is our wisdom, it is our Torah, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is giving us and is making the one main thing that the nations around the world would appreciate about us, as he says in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 4, where he says that the nations will appreciate you, will value you based on your observance of Torah. Meaning the nations, the Gentiles, know what a Jew is supposed to look like sometimes more than a Jew does. And they'll value you, appreciate you, based on how religious you are. The more religious you are, the closer you are to Hashem, the more the world around you would appreciate you and value and say, wow, these wise people that listen to their God. Whereas if you go your way like Herzl and his followers and all the heretics and the modernists and so on, the nations will repel you. While you think that you're unifying with them by acting like them, Hashem says, no, you acting like them is against nature. And therefore, they'll do something to bring back nature to its norm. Now, there is many sipurim, many amazing stories about some of our tzaddikim. One of the extraordinary stories that I heard from my Rav Ephraim is about the Rebbe Mitzantz, Rav Halberstam, who wrote the Sefer Divrei Chaim. His name was Rav Chaim Halberstam, but he was also known as the Rebbe Mitzantz. He was an extraordinarily holy person that truly lived a life that's one of a kind. And this holy Rebbe Mitzantz one time went and passed by a zoo. And the zoo had a lion in a cage. And as soon as the Rebbe Mitzantz passed it, the lion stopped what he was doing and started walking on two legs in his honor, like a circus lion. But he wasn't a circus lion, he was just a lion from a zoo. All of a sudden, this lion started walking on two legs in honor of the Rebbe Mitzantz. How do we know it's from the honor of the Rebbe Mitzantz? Because he wouldn't stop. As long as the Rebbe Mitzantz was there, he just continued walking on two legs. People gathered, start seeing it's unusual. Rebbe Mitzantz passes and the lion walks this way. And it was obvious that that's the reason. Soon after, the security guard, was really old man, said, hold on, let me see, who's doing that? And he saw, he sees the Rebbe Mitzantz. He goes, I saw this one other time. Long time ago, he says. Long time ago, there was another old Jewish man that came by, and the lion stood up for him too. And they find out through conversation That was actually the Rebbe Mitzan's grandfather, who was also a Ish Kodesh. When a person literally sanctifies themselves, the world around them changes. The more we try to be like the rest of the world, unfortunately, the worse things get. The worse things get. It's not the better things get. This is also why the Chachamim tell us that watching our eyes is one of the key ingredients to preserving your neshama, because as the Old Torah of the Magid in page 197 says that the reason why thinking thoughts that are immoral leads to nocturnal emissions is because the thoughts of sin, just the thoughts, without sin in itself, the thoughts of sin create the souls of the klipa. They create the souls of the klipa, and now this soul starts looking for a body. So where is it going to look? The place that created it. Therefore, when a person looks at immodest things, immoral things, naturally they're going to have a nocturnal emissions when they go to sleep, and in order for that klipa to have something physical to connect to. Physically to connect to. But this is not just for men, this is also for women. As says in the Shara Kavanot, in Yan Drush Laila, and also in Yefei Lalev, page 139, also the Kaf Chaim, and several other Chachamim talk about how the issues of waste of Zera Levatala also apply to women, and because what they do also increases the evil spirits and the klipot. And even them having forbidden thoughts is prohibited, as Rav Moshe Feinstein brings. Rav Moshe Feinstein, the Gadol Hador of America, in the Igot Moshe Even HaEzer, section 1, halacha number 69, says that it's forbidden for women to on the principles of entertaining forbidden thoughts. Why? Because, like I said, these forbidden thoughts of both men and women create the souls of the klipa, which later on will be something that's looking for a body, a seed of some kind, an egg of some kind. Now, if a person takes some of these things to seriousness, you'll start realizing why there are certain things that are prohibited, why there are certain things that are allowed. For example, before we get to this Rambam that the Rav Wasserman brings, the Hilchot Melachim, chapter 1, halacha number 7, let's look at some of the halachot that come before it, because it'll give us a little bit of a foundation to build on, understand clearer where we stand with our own ideology. So in Hilchot Melachim, it's in chapter 1, in halacha number 4, it says that a king of Israel, should not be appointed from converts to Judaism. Meaning, a convert cannot be a king. Which, by the way, also answers the question of why all of these people that either are not Jewish and want to convert, or they're not Jewish and don't want to convert, why they could never be the Mashiach. Okay, because in order for someone to be a Mashiach, they have to be a natural born Jew. And also the descendants of David HaMelech. Now, this applies, the Rambam writes, even if the convert's ancestors were Jewish for many generations. Unless his mother or father is a native-born Israelite, cannot be a king. Now, this doesn't only apply to monarchy alone, but all positions of authority within Israel. Meaning, all positions of authority are forbidden for converts. A convert can never be the head rabbi of Israel. A convert can never be the Kohen. A convert can never be the main board member. Why? That's the rule. Are there exceptions? Yes. Rare, almost unfounded, but there have been exceptions throughout history. But generally speaking, there is no exceptions. Now, for all of those that are offended, continue to listen. A convert may not serve as an army commander. A convert cannot serve as a leader of 50 or a leader of 10, meaning the dayan of some kind. The main dayan. He's not even to supervise the allocation of water stream for various fields. Needless to say, he's not allowed to judge or to be the nasi, which doesn't exist in the world anymore, nasi, but nonetheless, at the time of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he couldn't be a convert as the nasi. He couldn't take that role. Those positions should only be given to native-born Israelites, as it's stated in the Torah. Appoint a king. This is in a Gemara Masechet Kiddushin, page 76b. Appoint a king over you from among your brethren, the pasuk says, which implies that all of the appointments must be from your brethren. Now, this sounds like, hold on a second, what? Convert is not considered one of our brothers? No, that's not what it's saying. But the point is, the halacha goes where there's specific positions are not going to the convert. Could the convert be wealthy? Sure. Could the convert be a rabbi? Absolutely. Could the convert do a lot of good things? Absolutely. Have there been certain exceptions? Yes, but there are certain things you don't look for exceptions. Why? Because you don't want to play with fire. Why not? Because the convert's role in the world is not that. It's not that. Similar to, before we explain this particular point further, similar to the next halacha, which says, we may not appoint a woman as a king. A woman is not allowed to be a king. But this principle also applies to all other positions of authority within Israel. A man should be the only one that's appointed to fill them. Why? Because the Torah says that when describing monarchy, the Torah only uses male form in order to describe a king and not female form. Plus, there's other reasons, which is kol kvoda bat melech pnima, which is all of the honor of the woman is within. It's not modest for her to be the center of attention, and it's not appropriate to put her in a vulnerable position where people could attack her directly, and so on and so forth. But her role in the world, the woman's role in the world, is not to be the leader. It's not to be the head judge, the head rabbi, the king. No, it's not the role in the world. Does that mean she's lesser? No, it doesn't mean that. But that's the halacha. She's not allowed. Why? We'll go into a second. But then the next halacha number 6 says, someone that was a butcher, a barber, a bath attendant, a tanner, and the Gemara in the Masechet Kiddushin goes into a few other positions: a perfume salesman, a knitter, a jeweler, a professional that's primarily involved with women, like these guys that sell women's clothing. These people should not be appointed king or high priest. Why? This is not because, this answers all of the questions really. It's not because of an inherent fault in them. There's nothing wrong with the tanner or the jeweler or the guy that's a butcher. There's nothing wrong with them. But rather because their professions are less prestigious and people will always treat them lightly as a result of it. You used to cut hair? Okay. Doesn't make you a bad guy, especially if you're a guy, you only cut guys' hair because you're not allowed to cut women's hair. And if you did that, it's no problem. If you're a butcher, we depend on you. You need to have a lot of Yirat Shamayim, because if you don't have Yirat Shamayim, we're going to all eat taref. So obviously there's a lot of respect for the butcher. But you're always going to be a butcher in the eyes of people. And unfortunately, what happens as a result is that people are never going to respect you like a king. Never going to respect you as a king. And therefore, although it's not a fault, Hashem knows the reality. He told the Chachamim, this is the reality. The world, I created my people a certain way. They're never going to respect the butcher or the tanner or the bath attendant or the barber as a king. Not going to respect him. And if the king does not have respect, he can't be a king. Why? Because he's going to have to kill everybody. Because anyone that disrespects a Jewish king has to be killed. Now, a king is not allowed to just let his be disrespected. It's not his kavod. His kavod is, in essence, God's kavod. So you're not allowed to disrespect the king. Now, a person that has served in any one of these professions, the Rambam continues, for even a single day, is disqualified from monarchy. So here we see that the halacha of appointing a leader are very strict, to say the least, but a little bit confusing. Why? Because some of the things we're like, okay, hold on a second. Why can't the butcher and why this? And there are explanations. There are explanations, but nonetheless, let's start with the beginning, the one that probably bothers some people. Why can't the convert be the head rabbi, the king, and so why? Why? Now, were there exceptions in the past? Yes. Shmaya and Avtalion. Shmaya and Avtalion were several generations before Rabbi Akiva. And Shmaya and Avtalion were two converts that excelled in Torah knowledge to such a point that there was nobody even similar to them. There was nobody even similar to them in that day. And they were appointed Nasi and the head of the Bedin. The head of the Sanhedrin, the head of the Sanhedrin. Because they were just so extraordinary that there had to be a exception made for them. Nobody else was even similar to them, and it was for the betterment of the Am Yisrael that they are the leaders. And the Knesset HaGdolah explains that the nation itself accepted Shmaya and Avtalion as leader because their capabilities surpassed those of the rest of the people, and in such an instant, there's no prohibition involved. Now, if somebody comes and says, listen, I know Torah, I know good things, great, but if there is a natural-born Jew that is as good or better than you, then there's a prohibition to have you as the leader. But if there's nobody that's even similar to you, you're that great, then there has to be an exception. How often does that happen? This is the one story that I know. The same thing goes with kings and queens. There was in the Kings 2, chapter 11, describes how Atalia, which was the mother of Achaziah, was a wicked woman, murderous woman. After her son died, she pretty much killed all of the descendants with the exception of one little baby named Yoash in order to become the new king, in essence the queen. But the Chachamim never accepted her and just considered her a murderer throughout the, I believe it was 7 years that she was the leader. But nonetheless, this was one of the times that there was nothing to do. There was nothing that they could do. There was another time that there was a righteous woman named Salome. Salome was a righteous woman that became the king. She was actually the sister of one of the Chachamim, Shimon ben Shatach. She listened to him, but when she was given the position of power of being the queen, there was she didn't consult with her brother, but Chachamim say that even if she would have consulted with her brother, they still would have made her queen. Why? Because it was either her being queen or the reform of the day called the Sadducees becoming the king. So here there had to be an exception where, yes, the woman is not supposed to be the king, it's not supposed to be the leader of everybody, but if the only choice we have is either a heretic or a kosher woman, of course we're going to pick the kosher woman every time. So it's not crazy rules that are anti-women and so on, but rather you don't want it to be that way. Why? Because the woman has a different role. The convert has a different role. The butcher has a different role in the world. And all of us have a single united role, which is to serve Hashem through following His Torah, but each one of us has individual roles. And even within the individual groups' roles, there's unique rules that are individualistic rules. So one of the things that a person can know as a benefit of being a convert, if you hear the shiur that I made, I believe it was last week, about all the great things about converts, there is another amazing thing that a convert can do that a natural-born Jew cannot do. There is one thing. Now, of course, I told you last week that a natural-born Jew is supposed to love a convert as much as he loves God, which is even more than he loves another natural-born Jew. Now, that sounds fine, nice and fine. How often is that practiced? Perhaps not often as it should be. But nonetheless, it's only after a person completes their conversion, not while they're going through the conversion. While they're going through the conversion, they're not considered a convert. They're just considered a person that wants to convert. A righteous Noahide, perhaps, but not a convert. Once they convert, then that law applies. But either way, there is something that is unique about the convert, that they could do something that the natural-born Jew cannot do. What is that? The yichus, the lineage of the convert is, in essence, they are the sons and daughters of Avraham and Sarah. But that yichus also prohibits them from being the king, prohibits them from marrying a Kohen, prohibits them from certain things. Seems like, oh, that's terrible, that's prejudiced. No, just that's not their role in the world. That's not their role in the world. What is their role? Their role is to bring kedusha to the world. The role is to help people do tshuva. But not just help people do tshuva, help the lost causes do tshuva. What are the lost causes? When there is a crime made in Am Yisrael, obviously not everybody knows about it except Hashem. There are certain crimes that it's sometimes impossible for the world to know about. But the damage caused by that crime is so extraordinary that Hashem promises to destroy those people. He will not let those people continue living a fruitful life. What kind of crime is this? The crime of a gilui arayot, of adultery that leads to a child, or incest that leads to a child. Whereas someone has an incestual relationship, a person with their mother, a girl with their father, brothers and sisters, and so on. Incestual relationship that actually leads to a child. Or adultery. A woman cheats on her husband and she has a child with another man while being married to the first one. That leads to a child. Now that crime itself is karet. Those people are cut off. But even the child suffers. Why? Because that child is now called a mamzel. And the mamzel is not allowed to marry a natural-born Jew. Forbidden from marrying a natural-born Jew. This is also the reason why one of the jobs of the rabbis, when they wed people and so on, is to know where these people came from. To know where the people came from, who they married, to make sure that the kids are not mamzels, that they know that the parents are not brother and sister, or something like that. And it wasn't out of adultery. And so why? Because if it came out of adultery, or in one case I had a woman, she wanted to marry a guy, and she was a wonderful woman, he was a wonderful guy. Only problem is, she had a relationship with a non-Jewish guy one time, which is obviously a crime, but it's not as big of a crime. It's not as big of a crime for her to do that as it would be in that particular circumstance. Why? Because the guy she wanted to marry now was a Jew, but he was a Kohen. And as soon as she made that crime with being intimate with a non-Jew, one time in her life, years before that, she's officially prohibited from marrying a Kohen ever. Why? That's the rule. That's the rule. A mamzel, someone that's their parents had an incestual relationship or adulterous relationship, that mamzel, even though he himself, it looks like he never did anything, of course he did something in his previous carnation to bring him to this situation in the first place, but nonetheless, he, whether he likes it or he doesn't like it, she, whether she likes it or doesn't like it, is forbidden from marrying a natural-born Jew. How long? Forever. And better yet, Hashem says, I don't want those mamzerim to continue in the world. I don't want them to continue in the world. And therefore, if those people end up ignoring the rules, marrying another regular Jew anyway, what ends up happening many times is they die, they don't have any children, they have a disastrous life. And I'll tell you even a story proving that in a moment. That's really shocking. I told it one time, but it's one of those stories that if I didn't live to see this story, it's hard to me to believe. Hard to believe. But anyway, the unique job of the convert is to bring people to do tshuva, to bring kedusha to the world. One of the reasons why Hashem spread Am Yisrael in the four corners of the world, the Chachamim say in the Zohar and several other places, is to collect converts, to collect more and more righteous converts around the world. What's the job of the convert? To bring more kedusha, to bring more Jews back to Am Yisrael. But not just regular Jews, everyone that they can, especially the lost causes. Why? Hashem gave them a unique role. The convert is allowed to marry the mamzer, which means that the mamzer is allowed to marry either another mamzer, so there's two mamzerim, he's from this ancestral relationship, she's from that ancestral relationship, obviously not the same parents, but they're allowed to marry each other, so that lineage of mamzerim stays small, but that's hard to find. Why? People don't walk around with a mamzer sign on their head. And sometimes people don't even know they're mamzerim. They don't know. Many people don't even know they're mamzerim. So, what's going to happen? Or they're allowed to marry a convert. Why is that a good thing? Why is that a special thing? It may sound at first look, it may sound like, oh, that's not cool. Well, I'm a convert, I'm holy, I keep this, I keep that, I know more Torah than some of my fellow Jews that have been Jews their whole life. Why should I marry this mamzer? What, I'm a second-class citizen? Opposite, higher level. Why higher level? You can do a job that no natural-born Jew can do. What? You can recreate a new lineage for that mamzer, eliminating the need for Hashem to kill him. Eliminating the need for Hashem to kill her. Eliminating the need for Hashem to kill their children. Why? If they continue as mamzerim, Hashem has to destroy them at some point to eliminate the lineage. Has to eliminate it. That's what he says in the Torah. But if they marry a convert, that means that now their children will no longer be mamzerim. They are one generation away from no longer being mamzerim. Their kids won't be mamzerim. Why? Because, again, a mamzer and a mamzer create a mamzer. Mamzer and a convert don't create a mamzer. So now you have saved a person and their kids, and you brought them back to Am Yisrael. Lessons you created these people. Which you became a partner with a Kadosh Baruch Hu. You became a partner with a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and giving is ultimate mercy. Now, Rabotai, I'm going to tell you a story. It's shocking. But I just thought about it, which means that, as Rav Shvadron, Alav Shalom, said, if I thought about it, even if it has nothing to do with what we're saying, that means Hashem wants me to say it. In this particular case, it has a lot to do with what we're saying. I met somebody one time, was watching my shiurim, nice person, and anyway, this person was learning, watching, Jewish guy. And one day, he shares different things with me. He says he has, family. He's got one son, and the son just got married and just had a kid, and so on and so forth. And a little baby kid, a little son, the son. No one was really religious. Only the father, the guy that I was talking to, was starting to become more and more religious, watching the shulim and so on and so forth. Anyway, one time we talked. He's like, "Listen, I want to tell you something. Is that, I had a pretty unique life and so on." I said, okay, so in those days it was still early on. I was still talking to people on the phone. So anyway, he tells me, like, listen, I remember that, the most shocking thing in my life, he says that my mom told me a story. It says, you don't know this, but I want to tell you a story about my life, she tells him. And she was already older. And he says, what's the story? She says that she grew up as a only child, and not religious, nothing. And, she went through her life. She did all types of things and so on and so forth. And one day, she met this young man. And she started dating the guy. And this is in the old days where things were still relatively conservative and so on. She started dating the guy and so on. And, a short period of time, she wanted to introduce this man to her mom because she wanted to marry him. So he was really, really nice, prepared himself, everything. He comes to the house, and immediately the mom gives him an attitude that the daughter never saw in her life. She doesn't like him, she's mistreating him, being nasty to him, and eventually he leaves, and she tells her daughter, listen, I don't want you to marry him. Why not? What's wrong with him? I just don't want you to marry him. Don't marry him. Whatever you do, don't marry this guy. And she says, no, come on, I really love him. He already proposed this. Don't marry him. She doesn't listen to her mom, and she marries the guy anyway. And they have a child, and they grow up, and so on and so forth. Now, the mom is unhappy about this whole thing, but what can she do? They got married, and they're growing up, and so on and so forth. Now the mom got a little older, and she says to the daughter, says, I need to talk to you. I need to tell you something. She says, what? She says, when you were young, before you could remember, I had another child before you. But because I had that child, out of wedlock, I wasn't ready for it, so I gave him to somebody. And I said, okay, it's somebody else will take care of him and so on and so forth. But I would keep a tab on who this person is. He lived in a different place and so on. She says, okay, why are you telling me about this child? Where's this son? She says, that's the problem. You brought him to my house one time. She says, I did? I brought him to your house? Yes, and I told you I don't like him. Because who did I ever bring to the house? I never brought a boy to the house. She's not even putting two and two together of what's going on here. You probably already did. She says, no, I'm trying to tell you is, he's your husband. The woman says, excuse me? She says, yeah, he's your husband. Which means her husband is her biological brother. Her husband is our biological brother. Incest, which is a crime in Judaism. They're Jews. Worse yet, they got married and they had a son. Who's the son? The person that I met that's telling me this story. Now, I don't even know what to do with this story. I don't know. This guy doesn't know what a mamzer is. He just knows that this is off. And at that point, I'm sorry, I don't even know what to do with this story. And I'm thinking to myself, Hashem Yishmo. I mean, this guy's already older. He's probably in his 60s or something like that, 50s. And there's not much he can do. He's a mamzer. He already got married, everything. He has one son. And I'm thinking to myself, the poor guy doesn't even realize what's going on in his life. Anyway, we have that conversation. I'm as shocked as can be. The story pauses there. A short while later, he sends me a bunch of messages. Please, Rabbi, call me, please. I have an emergency. Please, I need to talk to you just a few minutes. Please, something disastrous happened. I call the guy, and he's crying hysterical. And I tell him, what happened? Why are you crying? He says, Rabbi, today, my son and my only grandson, my only son and my only grandson, they came to visit me, and I was so happy because I haven't seen him in a while. And then my son said, you know what, I'm going to go take the son with me. They would take the little baby, go take my son with me. They were going someplace. I don't remember the exact place. I want to take my son with me. So he takes the little baby. The son takes his own kid. The father stays there. He's like, okay, I'll see you guys whenever you come back. They're staying with him for a few days. Son goes with his son into the car. He puts the baby in the back seat. He goes to the front seat. He turns on the car, and the car blows up. Shem Yishmo V'Yatzil. Like a movie, like a disastrous movie, like a mafia movie. But it wasn't a mafia. Something went wrong with the fuel or something. The car blew up. The kid wasn't a gangster or anything like that. The car blew up. Both of them died instantly. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu fulfilled his promise to destroy the mamzer from the world, even if the mamzer doesn't know that he's a mamzer, even if the mamzer wouldn't have done it otherwise. But nonetheless, HaKadosh Baruch Hu does what he does. Why? Because there's a certain structure to his world that cannot be violated. And I saw this with my own eyes. The guy told me that he's a mamzer. He didn't even know what a mamzer is, and I don't believe I ever told him what a mamzer is. To this day. Never told him what a mamzer is. If he's watching this lecture still, he probably know that he's the guy. There's not that many stories like this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promised that a mamzer cannot continue living. But I'm not going to tell him after his son died. There's no purpose. It's not going to hurt the guy. I'm not going to tell him. But that's what happened. He lived as a mamzer. He didn't know. His son knew even less, obviously. But HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, no, now it's going too far. You had a son, now there's another son. This can continue destroying Am Yisrael more and more. Cannot be. Now, HaKadosh Baruch Hu brought converts to the world. Why did he bring converts to the world? In order to eliminate things like this, disasters like this. Why? It's either he removes them from the world, or you fix them. Now, don't go around and say, oh, I'm a convert, I'm looking for mamzerim. That's obviously not going to work. Hashem knows your heart. And if you really truly want to be a tool that Hashem uses in order to save these precious neshamot, surely this is what Hashem's going to give you. And the Gemara says, a mamzer that's a Talmid Chacham is considered like a Kohen Gadol. A mamzer that's Talmid Chacham is very highly honored. Very highly honored. The point being, Abutai, we see here that although there are limitations to what a convert could do, that's not because there's a limitation with the convert. Because we already learned that the convert is very high level, higher than a natural born Jew. It's just that that's not their role, this is their role. Although the other people, let's say the woman, is limited, she cannot be a leader without a major exception. The reality is that a woman is obviously very, very important in Judaism. Why? If it wasn't a woman, there wouldn't be any men. If it wasn't for the women, we wouldn't be saved from Egypt. As the Chachamim tell us, the reason why Kadosh Baruch Hu saved us from the Egyptians is because of the modesty of the women. And the reason why Hashem is going to bring the Mashiach is because of the modesty of the women. So here we see that the women have a certain role. Same thing goes with all of the different professions. They each have their own role. Now, halakha number 7. The Rambam writes here that when a king is appointed, but this is in essence referring to any position really. But when a king is appointed, he's anointed with oil reserved for this purpose. This is the oil that we hear about first from the book of Samuel's 1, chapter 10, verse number 1. And Samuel took the cruse of oil and poured it over his head and then kissed him. This is the oil that Moshe Rabbeinu brought to the world in essence, and this was used at the time of Moshe Rabbeinu, and then later on it was used on the kings, on the righteous kings. So when a king is appointed, the prophet puts oil on him. Now, once a king is anointed, he is and his descendants are granted the monarchy until eternity. For the monarchy is passed down by inheritance, as it says in Deuteronomy 17:20. Thus he, meaning the king, and his descendants will prolong their reign in the midst of Israel. So this monarchy, this kinghood, is something that goes from father to son. The halakha continues. If the king leaves only a young son, the monarchy should be held for him until he's mature. Just as Yoyada did for Yoash. Yoash was the son, the son of Achaziah, that, as I told you before, he was the king of Yehuda. And after Achaziah died, his mom, Atalia, she killed everybody because she wanted to become the new king or the new queen. And but the Kohen Yoyada knew that she's a wicked woman, so he hid this little boy Yoash until he was 7 years old, and then he brought him back and he became king and removed the wicked Atalia from the kinghood. But nonetheless, it shows that from there we learned that if there's only one little son and he's not able to be a king at that time, then we simply wait for him. And the order of the monarchy is the same as the government, as the governing the inheritance of property. The older son is given precedence over the younger ones. Not only is the monarchy, but all other positions of authority and appointment in Israel are transferred to one's children and grandchildren as inheritance forever. So here we also learned that, again, this is not just talking about monarchy, but all other positions is what we were really referring to in regards to inheritance, but also the next things that we're going to talk about in the same halacha. And then the Rambam says what Rav Wasserman quoted, which is what many responses, which is a questions and answers that Poskim put together and reviewed, which I'm going to go over a few of them. Many of them went back and forth using this halacha as the source. Here he says this: the above applies, meaning the monarchy changing from father to son, for the older to the younger, all of these special privileges only apply if the knowledge and the fear of God of the son is equivalent to his ancestors. If the fear of God that he has is equivalent to their ancestors, but not their knowledge, they don't know as much Torah, then he should still be granted the father's position of kinghood and just simply given instructions, meaning he's not a Talmid Chacham like his father, but he has Yirat Shamayim, he could still be a king. However, the Rambam paskins, under no circumstance should a person who lacks fear of God be appointed to any position in Israel, even though he possesses much wisdom. Here the Rambam breaks all barriers and explains to us the whole significance of the entire halacha, because most of us are not going to even lineage of the king for this to matter to us. What's the whole purpose of this halacha? To teach us this. This king, privileges, conditions, all these wonderful things, great, but that's conditional. What's the condition? He has to have Yirat Shamayim, he has to have fear of God. If he has fear of God, even if he doesn't know a lot of Torah, but he has fear of God, he can still be king, he still gets the privileges. You're just going to teach him, no problem. But if he doesn't have Yirat Shamayim, doesn't have fear of God, even if he knows a lot of Torah, he has an entire library of books and he knows all of them by heart, but he doesn't apply them to his life, therefore he doesn't have Yirat Shamayim, he is forbidden from being a king or any position of power, anything. He can't be a judge, he can't be a rabbi, he can't be anything, nothing. Can't even manage the water system, nothing. And for him, it's not like the convert or some of the other people because their role is different in the world. For him, it's a punishment because he's wicked. He's wicked and cannot be trusted. And here we see that the monarchy that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to David HaMelech, as he writes in Psalm 132:12, he says the monarchy is going to be for him forever. What was the condition though? If your children will keep my covenant. If your children will keep my covenant, then the monarchy is forever. But if they don't, so what am I going to do? Destroy them? No, I already told you it's forever. But at the same time, I told you that I'm not allowed to give them if they have no Yirat Shamayim. So what does he do? Psalm 89, verse 31 to 38 says exactly what I'm telling you. And this is what the Rambam quotes, if his children will forsake my Torah and cease walking in my statutes, I will punish their transgressions with the rod and their sins with plagues. Hashem yishmor v'yatzil. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to David HaMelech, your monarchy is forever. Forever. There are going to be some other kings along the way, but you are going to be the permanent one. You're the Mashiach and so on. But the condition is that the ones that are going to be are the righteous ones. So if there's no righteous ones, there's going to be other ones in the interim until the punishment that I give them, your descendants until they do tshuva and they become righteous again. What kind of punishments? Plagues, i.e. coronavirus. You see, Rabotai Karim, everybody says that we are in the era of Mashiach. The fact that we have coronavirus is actually one of the signs that we learned today that we are in the era of Mashiach, because if the Mashiach Tzidkenu is among us, that means that the generation, the descendants, the preparation has to be one of a Kadosh Baruch Hu hitting us in order to wake us up, but with something unique, with plagues. Why? Because that's what he told David HaMelech. Your descendants will be the kings. From you will come Mashiach. But so long as your descendants are not following the covenant, the original agreement, I have to punish them. I have to put other people in leadership. Until that punishment will be effective and people do tshuva, and then they come back and the Mashiach can come. What's the punishment? Tehillim says, David HaMelech says, punishment of plagues. Shem Yishmo. Now, Rabotai, the whole issue of having a person that has Yirat Shamayim, fear of God, as a leader, is not one of machloket. There's no debate on this. The responsa by Rav Avram Blum from Hungary, lived in the late 1800s, responsa called Bet Sharim, in Orach Chaim 314. There's a question of about people that wanted to open like a seminar for young teenage boys, teaching them about all types of things, Judaism, and a little bit of Torah, and a little bit of having a good time, and a little bit of this, and listen, you don't want to keep Shabbat, it's not such a big deal. Just keep this week once a year, once a month. The next week is no big deal. Hashem loves you anyway. Let's go to the park. Let's go to the zoo. It's Judaism, but without Yirat Shamayim. So they asked the Rav, what does the Rav think of such a thing? I mean, there are organizations in the world that operate like this. Many of them, unfortunately, and I'm sure that some of you that are watching already know one or two or three or four or five of them, that are huge organizations that operate exactly like this. They tell people, no, this is Judaism. Your young son or daughter will hang out with other people's young sons and daughters, even if your young son meets another young daughter, which is forbidden according to the Torah. At least they're both Jewish, so they make a sin together. So it's, in essence, Judaism, but without Yirat Shamayim. So the Bet Sharim comes and says, they want to build a seminar in Afin, the city of Afin, while disregarding the Rambam's halacha in Hilchot Melachim, chapter 1, halacha number 7, meaning disregarding the fact that you have to have Yirat Shamayim to be in a position of power to head such an organization. Disregarding this halacha is antithetical to our religion and will be destructive to the Jewish children, to the Jewish people, which will be the trap that causes the trap that comes from a lack of Yirat Shamayim. And it will be a fall of darkness that will not have any real light of Torah come from there, but rather the water of broken cisterns. In so many words, he's saying, you're thinking that you're going to do kiruv with these teenagers in a modern way, so you can go to trips. Boys and girls are going to go to trips together. The girls are not going to learn about modesty. They're going to learn about, tradition, hummus, shawarma, all types of stories about women of Judaism. I'm not going to tell them about Yirat Shamayim. And the guys, you can tell them, put on tefillin, but, it's okay if you drive on Shabbat. It's not the end of the world. Don't drive and park in front of the shul. Park behind, so at least nobody else knows. And all types of awful things that unfortunately have become standard in today's organizations of younger people calling themselves kiruv. The Bet Sharim says these organizations are antithetical to the Torah, to our religion, and there's not going to be any light coming from them, but rather the water of broken cisterns, meaning nothing will come from them. Nothing will come from them. He says, anyone with Yirat Shamayim, anyone without Yirat Shamayim is forbidden to be given any position of power or leadership. As the Rambam writes in Hilchot Melachim, chapter 1, Halakha number 7, the Bet Sharim brings. Or you can see in the Shulchan Aruch, Yoreh De'ah 243:3, that says that a Talmid Chacham who disrespects mitzvot and has no Yirat Shamayim is considered among the lowest of the community. Someone that's a Talmid Chacham knows a lot of Torah, but he has no Yirat Shamayim. The Bet Sharim says he's the lowest in the community. It's better to have someone who doesn't know a lot of Torah, but has Yirat Shamayim. He's considered better than him. The Igrot Moshe, Rav Moshe Feinstein, in Yoreh De'ah, chapter 2, Halakha number 45, was asked something similar. Can you hire secular people to your leadership? Let's say the board of directors of your shul, of your organization. Can you have secular people in a position of leadership? Secular Jews. Moshe Feinstein writes, it's a Torah prohibition to hire such people. As the Rambam writes in Hilchot Melachim, chapter 1, Halakha number 7. Because no Yirat Shamayim means that no leadership is permitted, no leadership position in Israel for anything. And this has always been the psak among all of Gdolei Israel. Meaning Rav Moshe Feinstein says there was never a debate about this issue. That no one ever thought that you could hire some Mechalel Shabbat to be on the board of directors of the shul because he donated a lot of money. Quite the opposite. Some won't even take his money. But even if you want to take his money, you still can't give him a position of power, board of directors, nothing. Which, of course, as some of you know, is the exact opposite of what's going on today. In many, many shuls. I'd like to say something else, but I'm going to reserve it at that point. Amevin Yavin. Rav Moshe Feinstein is responding to another Chacham that says, no, why is it not a problem? Why is it a problem to hire, to have some of these board of directors of the shuls, even if they don't keep mitzvot, they're good people, they're smart people. Rav Moshe Feinstein says the Torah prohibition to do such a thing. Because as we all know, all of Gdolei Israel always said it's forbidden to hire, to have somebody in a leadership position if they have no Yirat Shamayim. It also says in the Sefer HaChinuch, 700 years ago, mitzvah number 497 and 498. And he says there's no machloket about this. There was no debate about this issue. Everyone agreed about this. Why? This is halakha. It's simple. No Yirat Shamayim, no leadership. And this is even more critical of a prohibition than having a kosher woman as a leader. Meaning, if there had to be decided, let's say, to have a woman as the head of the board of directors, that's not allowed. The head of the anything, the woman is not allowed. That's the halakha. But if it was one option was to have a woman as the head of the board of directors, kosher woman obviously, or have a Mechalel Shabbat heretic guy as the member of the board, surely you pick the woman. Surely. Why? Because the prohibition of a heretic is much, much more significant than the prohibition of a woman. Now, if the only person, if the only option, he says, Rav Moshe Feinstein, if the only option is a kosher woman or wicked people without Yirat Shamayim, then surely the kosher woman is the only option of who you would have. And you're writing, he tells us to the other Rav that wrote, wanted to debate him. And you're writing that, thinking that it's allowed to have non-kosher people as part of the board, as part of leadership. Your writing are completely a waste that contradict it, which surprises me. of how you wrote such a thing, Moshe Feinstein writes. Says, you think that there's even a debate to be had here? That you could have a heretic, you could have someone that is antithetical to the Torah as someone that a leader? So yeah, but don't you make an exception with the converts? Don't you make an exception with the women? He says, that's not the same exception. Why? With the woman, we made an exception in history because it was either the woman or the heretic. Surely we'll take the kosher woman over the heretic. And in the case of, let's say, Dvorah. Dvorah was a prophet. There was an exception. She was the judge. Some say she wasn't a judge. She was just teaching Torah and she was teaching halachot, so she was considered like a judge. But even if she was a judge, still okay. There was an exception made for her. Why? She was a prophet. God told us to do it. God told us to make her a leader. There's an exception for her. There's an exception for her. Same thing with Shlomo HaMelech. Shlomo HaMelech wasn't the oldest son of David HaMelech. But there was an exception made that he was going to be the continuation of David HaMelech, more than the other brothers, even though he's the youngest son. Why? God said it. God said, listen, I make the rules. Here there's an exception. There's an exception. What about the converts? Shmaya and Naftalion. They were Gdolei Yisrael. They were the biggest rabbis in the world. No one was even close to them. Surely there's an exception. But someone that has no Yirat Shamayim, there cannot be an exception. Why? Because lacking Yirat Shamayim is antithetical to the Torah. It's the opposite of Torah. The Gemara in Masechet Chulin, in page 5, and also in Masechet Eruvin, says the following, and the same thing the Rambam paskins, in Hilchot Shabbat, chapter 30, halacha number 15, last halacha. He says the following, chapter 15, halacha 30. He says the following, a Jew that violates Shabbat on purpose, a Jew that drives on Shabbat, a Jew that works on Shabbat is not only not allowed to slaughter your meat, because if he slaughters your meat, it's tarif, you're not allowed to eat it. He's also not allowed to bring a korban into Bet HaMikdash. The Gemara says that you can take the korbanot, the sacrifices of everybody, including the wicked people, except the idol worshippers and the ones that violate Shabbat. Mechalel Shabbat. Now they take their korban, their sacrifice. Why? Because they have removed themselves from Klal Yisrael and are considered 100% idol worshippers. Someone that doesn't keep Shabbat is considered 100% an idol worshipper, the Rambam says. The Gemara says. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. To have such a person that drives on Shabbat on the board of directors, not even as a president, as simply a member of the board of directors, is something that goes against the Torah and is literally to the point where there cannot be an exception made. Why? It's antithetical to the Torah to even have them in such a position. And that's why Rav Wasserman says, these modern types of people, they're showing their colors and they're showing how antithetical they are to the Torah. How? By not only telling us that we should make exceptions, but make exceptions with the people that are not even allowed in the position of power. It's people that deny the entire Torah completely. Not even just a guy that violates Shabbat, but he still goes to shul because he believes in God, he just doesn't really understand. No, they're saying even have the atheist, the Herzl, the Christian missionary, they should be in a position of power, the modern guy tells you. Wasserman says these people are antithetical to the Torah themselves. Why? Because while the Mechalel Shabbat is forbidden from being in a position of power, a person that they want to hire as the leader, that is a Christian missionary, that's a missionary for atheism, it's a missionary that's against the Torah, lefty, liberal, that guy is even worse than the Mechalel Shabbat. Why? He is worse than a dog. He's worse than a dog, this missionary. Why? We learn Gemara Masechet Avodah Zarah, and Rav Wasserman wrote this in the same contrast that we're talking about. We just said it 2 weeks ago. He says these missionaries, they're worse than dogs, because if a dog falls, You don't have to necessarily save him from the hole. You can, you don't have to. But you're not allowed to push the dog. Not allowed to push the dog in the hole. That's tzal bal chaim. But the missionary, you actually, not only you don't have to save him if he's in the hole, Rav Wasserman says, and the Gemara says, but if no one's looking, you can push him in the hole and let him die. Why? He's destroying neshamot. Now, of course, again, we don't push anybody. This is not an advocacy to apply the law of the Sanhedrin to your hands. But the point that Rav Wasserman is trying to say is this missionary is even worse than the Mechalel Shabbat. The Mechalel Shabbat is not allowed to have a position of power. And even the guy that keeps Shabbat and he doesn't have Yirat Shamayim is not allowed to have a position of power. These liberals, these nationalists, modernists that pretend to be religious, they're even going for worse. They're saying to you, we'll hire Christians to be on a board of our directors. We'll hire missionaries to have board of directors. Similar to how Prager on his staff and his speakers has a whole slew of Christian missionaries as presenters of his Prager University heresy. And unfortunately, how many synagogues, the bigger, the more problematic sometimes. Many synagogues have very close ties with Christian missionary organizations. They sometimes have Christians on their boards of their schools, of their synagogues. Many times they're big donors. Many times they invite them to their community, like Ephraim Goldberg does on a regular basis when the shuls open, and so on and so forth. While the Mechalel Shabbat is already problematic, the Rav Wasserman says, these people are pushing for the missionaries, which is even worse, to be the leaders. Hence the reason why he cries, hence the reasons why we cry, to wake you up and understand. Everybody has a role. Everybody has a role in Klal Yisrael. Everyone has a role. The woman has a role. The convert has a role. The child has a role. The father and the mother have a role. The king has a role. The rabbi has a role. The student has, everyone has a role. But if you choose to remove yourself from the Torah, don't ask for a role. Why? Those roles are for people that follow the rules. If you don't follow the Torah, there is no role for you. You removed yourself. And we may have to use one of our good people to save your toches because of how much trouble you got yourself into 1 or 2 generations out. Please, Rabotai Yekarim, protect your neshamot and use your neshamot in order to bring Kedusha to the world. Implement all the strength you possibly can to bring Am Yisrael closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, with more Torah, with more mitzvot, with more emet, by using your role to the best of your ability. If you're a woman, don't try to be a man. If you're a man, don't try to be a woman. Don't try to be this and don't try to be... Do what you have to do in your capacity, in your role. Why? Because your role is extremely important. And no one can take it. Your role is yours to have. If you don't do it, no one's going to replace you. No one's going to replace you. And we need every single person to play their role as best as possible. Be'ezrat Hashem, this too will help us get closer and closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by allowing us to identify what our purpose is in the world, what our role is in the world, but also what gets in the way. What gets in the way of our purpose and our role in the world. If we see that our community, our synagogue, our yeshiva is putting a bunch of people that are forbidden to be in a role of leadership, we can't stay quiet. We have to say something, Abutai. We have to say something, because those people are one of the reasons why Kadosh Baruch Hu is bringing the plague to the world today. You want a cure? It's not going to come from a needle. It's going to come from the mouth. Speak the truth, Kadosh Baruch Hu will bring a cure. Baruch Adonai leolam, amen v'amen. You know when you have a dream and you see a pretty woman? You've had that? Now you never actually see an ugly woman in dreams. It's always a pretty woman. And by the way, it's always the same woman for all of us. All of us have a dream of the same exact woman. And she's more dangerous than the Satan himself. Who is she? You're not even allowed to say her name. Why are you going to call for?
People are addicted to it.
I live a normal life.
Repent and you will find salvation.
Hashem Na'aseh V'Natzliach, Devarim, introducing the new Bezrat Hashem lecture center. We Hashem are here in Cooper City, Florida, on Sterling Avenue. We have in the same shopping center we have a major kosher supermarket. Lots of Jews out here. Initially, we're going to start off this place next month with a place where we're going to do our weekly shiurim 3 times a week. And as the crowd grows, maybe we'll add some more shiurim in Hebrew as well. Initially, it's going to be for men and women in English, and then later on, we'll do some other things. Later on, we're going to need to transform this place also into a synagogue. But as you can see, the walls are empty. We need an enormous amount of books. We need a Sefer Torah. We need an Aron Kodesh. We need a mechitza. We need a bima. We need all the holy things that you need for a synagogue. Now, throughout the years, we've been very generous to other people who've donated to Torah, who've donated money to different synagogues, and I'm sure that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to send us the right people to donate all of these things to our organization, because all we want to do is spread Torah to the world. So anyone that is serious and looking to make a major contribution to our organization, whether it be the Sefer Torah, or the Aron HaKodesh, or the Mechitza, please contact us, or simply go to our website, bezrathashem.org, and may Hashem continue to bless you.